Hello and welcome to Maudie's Shadow Stories. If you enjoy real-life inspired bedtime stories with emotional twists and deep secrets, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment about what you think or what you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps these stories alive and growing. Now, turn down the lights, take a deep breath, and get ready. Because tonight's story is one you won't easily forget. Title: My Therapist Got Me Pregnant, and I Can't Tell Anyone. It was the second Thursday of January 2023, in upstate New York, and the snow had been falling since early morning. The small town of Ithaca was quiet, blanketed in cold, and still recovering from the holidays. Inside a modest two-story townhouse on East State Street, Samantha Keller, 31, sat cross-legged on the floor of her bedroom, her phone buzzing beside her. She didn't touch it. Her eyes were fixed on a plastic stick resting on the edge of her bathroom sink. 2 pink lines. The room was dim, lit only by a single reading lamp in the corner, casting a soft amber glow over the pale walls. Outside, wind rattled the window panes, but Samantha didn't flinch. Her thoughts were louder. She whispered to herself, "How could this have happened again?" Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone. The missed call was from Dr. Mark Ellison, her therapist of nearly 10 months. Mark had been assigned to her after she suffered a panic episode at work. Samantha was a grant writer for Cornell University, brilliant at her job but emotionally hollow since her divorce in late 2021. Therapy had started out professionally, boundaries clear, goals set. But as the weeks passed, the conversations deepened, the silences stretched, and the way Mark looked at her began to shift. It wasn't just therapy anymore. It happened one evening in November, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. The session had run late. The office, located in a quiet wing of an older medical building on Aurora Street, had emptied out by 6. Samantha was crying. Not the loud kind, but the broken kind, like her body had run out of ways to hold it in. Mark had knelt beside her, gently placing his hand on her back. "You don't have to carry all this alone," he'd said. She remembered the way his breath hitched. How the room didn't feel cold anymore. How her heart was racing, not in fear, but in confusion and want. They didn't speak much after that night. Sessions resumed, but they were shorter. He kept checking the clock. She kept avoiding his gaze. Until 2 weeks later, she missed her period. Now it was January and the reality was undeniable. She was pregnant. And she couldn't tell anyone. Not her sister Molly, who had just started trusting her again after years of emotional distance. Not her boss, who barely tolerated emotional instability at the office. And definitely not anyone in town, where gossip spread faster than wildfire, especially about therapists crossing lines. Her stomach twisted. Was this assault? Was it love? Was it her fault? She had never told him to stop, but she also never imagined a man trained to help her would let this happen. The snow outside thickened, muting the world in white. Samantha stood up slowly, walking toward the window. Down the street, a figure in a charcoal gray coat was getting out of a car. She recognized the way he walked, the way he always checked over his shoulder. It was Mark. She hadn't told him yet. But maybe he already knew. Samantha froze at the window, her breath fogging the cold glass. Mark stood by the curb, adjusting the collar of his coat, looking up at her apartment building as if unsure whether to go in or turn back. His face was tight, unreadable in the fading daylight. She stepped back from the window, heart pounding, unsure if he had seen her. A knock came a minute later. Soft. Hesitant. She didn't answer. Another knock. Then silence. She pressed her back against the wall, staring at the door as if it might disappear if she stayed quiet long enough. But Mark spoke through the wood. "Sam, I just want to talk. Please." His voice still had that calm, soothing quality. The same tone that once guided her through sleepless nights and panic spirals. But now it felt different. She didn't trust it. Didn't trust herself. She opened the door slowly, her face pale. "I didn't ask you to come," she said, barely above a whisper. Mark looked down, snowflakes clinging to his lashes. "I know. I felt like something was wrong. You haven't returned my texts in a week. I've been worried. Samantha stepped aside, motioning for him to come in, but not meeting his eyes. The heat inside the apartment was stifling compared to the sharp cold outside. Mark slipped off his coat, hesitating as he looked around. The place was lived in but neat. A few open books on the table, a half-finished cup of tea by the armchair, a lavender candle burning quietly on the shelf. She sat first on the far end of the couch. He followed, leaving space between them. Mark rubbed his hands together, avoiding her gaze. "You're not okay." She didn't answer. "I know something happened. Something changed," he continued. "That night. I crossed a line. I know that. I haven't stopped thinking about it. I keep asking myself what kind of man, what kind of therapist would let that happen. And I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that." Samantha finally looked at him. Her eyes weren't angry. They were tired. Defeated. "I'm pregnant, Mark." The words fell like stones in a well. Heavy. Unstoppable. His face went still, his lips parting slightly as he took a shallow breath. "Are you sure?" She nodded. 3 tests. And a clinic visit this morning. Mark's mouth opened again, then closed. For a moment, he seemed to vanish inside himself, processing 100 thoughts all at once. "I didn't come here to pressure you," he said. "Whatever decision you make, I'll support it. But I need you to know, I didn't plan this. I never meant to hurt you." "You didn't just hurt me," she said, her voice thin. "You ruined everything I thought was safe. Therapy was the only place I could breathe. And now, I can't even trust my own memory of us. Was it manipulation? Or did I want it too?" Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Sam, I wish I had walked away. I should have. But I didn't. I let my feelings cloud my judgment, and I failed you." She looked away, eyes glistening. "You failed me the moment you kissed me," she said. "The rest was just damage control." A long silence filled the room, broken only by the wind scraping against the window panes. Down the hall, the radiator let out a low hiss. Samantha stood and walked to the kitchen, needing space. She filled a glass of water and held it without drinking. Her hands trembled. Mark watched her from the couch, unsure whether to follow or stay. Eventually, he rose and walked halfway to the kitchen, stopping at the edge. "Is there someone you can talk to?" he asked. "Someone neutral, another therapist, maybe?" She let out a dry laugh. "Do you really think I trust therapy now? Do you think I want to walk into another office and wonder if the man across from me is seeing a client? Or a broken woman he can touch without consequence?" He swallowed hard. "I can give you names. Women. Completely unaffiliated with me. That's not the point." Samantha turned to face him fully now, her eyes steady. "I don't know if I want this baby," she said. "I don't even know if I want to stay in Ithaca. Every street reminds me of how small this place is. How easy it is to be known, and judged." Mark's expression softened. "I'll support whatever you decide. Financially, emotionally. I'll sign whatever you need. You have no obligation to me." She looked at him long and hard. "That's the first honest thing you've said tonight." The sky outside had darkened. Snow continued to fall in lazy spirals, coating the steps outside her door. Samantha turned off the kitchen light and returned to the living room, sitting on the couch once again, this time folding her legs beneath her. Mark remained standing. "You should go," she said quietly. He nodded, grabbed his coat, and walked to the door. Before opening it, he paused. "I hope someday you'll find peace with this. Whatever you choose." She didn't respond, only watched him leave, her fingers tightening around the glass in her hands. When the door clicked shut, Samantha released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The silence after he left felt heavier than his presence. She placed the glass down and pulled a blanket over her shoulders. She stared at the pregnancy test box still sitting on her bathroom counter. It mocked her. A small plastic symbol of a decision no one could make for her. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was her sister, Molly. "Hey, thinking of you. Want to come over for dinner?" Nothing fancy, just soup and bread. Let me know. Samantha stared at the message. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. For a moment, she thought of telling her. Just typing it out. I'm pregnant. It's complicated. I don't know what to do. But instead, she just typed, maybe. I'll let you know. She set the phone aside, pulled the blanket tighter, and curled into the couch. Outside, the wind howled like a voice no one could answer. Samantha woke up on the couch hours later. Her neck ached from the awkward angle, and her head felt heavy, clouded with restless sleep and half-formed dreams. Outside, the snowfall had slowed, but everything was still covered in a thick white layer. The digital clock on her table glowed faintly in the dark. 11:42 p.m. The apartment was silent. Only the ticking of the wall clock and the low hum of the radiator filled the space. She slowly stood and made her way to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. Her reflection stared back. Pale skin, dark circles, tangled brown hair. On the counter, the pregnancy tests were still there. Unmoved. Their pink lines like scars across white plastic. This wasn't a dream. She was still pregnant. And still completely alone. The next few days passed like molasses. Samantha avoided work, emailing her department to request time off, claiming health issues. She ignored most texts and calls, except from her sister, Molly. On Sunday morning, without warning, Molly showed up at her door. I brought soup, bread, and that weird goat cheese you like, Molly said with a nervous smile. Samantha opened the door wordlessly and stepped aside to let her in. Molly looked her over, concern in her eyes. You look awful. I'm tired, Samantha replied quietly. They sat at the kitchen table as Molly unpacked the groceries. There was an awkward silence as Molly buttered slices of bread and avoided saying what she was clearly thinking. I know something's wrong, Molly finally said. And it's okay if you're not ready to talk about it. But I'm here. Samantha stared at the table for a moment before answering. I'm pregnant. Molly froze. Her face didn't change at first, as if the words hadn't registered. Then her shoulders stiffened. Oh. Samantha nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. Yeah. Is it someone you're dating? No. Molly swallowed. Do I know him? You might. It's Mark Ellison, the therapist. Samantha looked up. Molly's eyes were wide. Oh my God, Molly whispered. Sam. There was a silence between them, thick and loud. Did you consent? Was it? Samantha exhaled shakily. I don't know. I didn't say no. But I didn't know how to say yes either. It just happened. Molly got up and knelt beside her. She didn't say anything. She just held her hand. You were vulnerable. And he knew that. That's not okay, Sam. I know, Samantha whispered. But I can't tell anyone. Not yet. I'm not ready. Molly didn't push. She stayed the rest of the day, made tea, folded laundry, and sat with her sister in silence when there were no more words to speak. A week later, Samantha drove to a Planned Parenthood clinic in Syracuse, choosing a city far enough from Ithaca that no one she knew would see her. The waiting room was warm and quiet. Other women sat around her. Some alone, some with partners, some scrolling their phones or holding tissues. She didn't feel judged. But she also didn't feel like she belonged. A nurse led her into a small consultation room. She spoke gently, explained her options clearly, and handed her brochures with information on abortion, adoption, and parenting. Samantha nodded, barely able to focus. She left with a folder in her hand and no decision made. When she got home, a plain white envelope was waiting for her on the floor beneath the front door. Inside, a handwritten note. I'll stay away. I promise. But I'm here if you ever need anything. I'm sorry. No name. No return address. She tore the note in half and threw it in the trash without reading it again. That night, she wrapped herself in a blanket and opened her laptop. She typed, "How to file a complaint against a therapist in New York State." Her hand hovered over the keyboard. She didn't hit enter. Not yet. But she saved the page. February arrived with harsher winds and silent mornings. The snow was still heavy, but icicles hung from every gutter, and the roads grew slick with ice. Samantha started journaling. Every day. Every memory. She wrote down the dates, the sessions, the things Mark had said that made her feel seen. Then confused. Then trapped. She wrote, not to forget but to remember clearly. One night she scribbled, "Even if I keep this child, they deserve to know the truth. And if I don't, I still deserve to heal." Molly continued to check in, bringing over food on weekends, inviting her for walks, talking about the news or her coworkers or anything but the thing that hovered between them. Privately, Molly had begun looking into legal options. She didn't want to overwhelm Samantha, but she wanted to be ready, just in case. By mid-February, Samantha made an appointment with a lawyer in Syracuse. A woman named Lisa, who specialized in medical ethics and mental health violations. In the office, Samantha sat across from her, legs crossed tightly, hands in her lap. She told the story, quietly, steadily, without crying. Lisa listened. "You have a strong case," she said when Samantha finished. "This wasn't a romantic relationship. This was a breach of duty. He was in a position of power, and he abused it." Samantha nodded slowly. "I'm not doing this for revenge," she said. "I just don't want him to do it to anyone else." Lisa gave her a list of steps. Names. Numbers. Agencies to contact. But nothing would move forward unless Samantha gave her consent. "I need a little more time," she said. "Of course," Lisa replied. "You're in control." For the first time in weeks, that statement felt true. March crept in quietly. The snow began to melt, leaving behind wet sidewalks and leafless trees. Samantha stood in front of her mirror, holding the latest ultrasound photo in her hand. 11 weeks. She could hear the heartbeat during the last appointment. It had sounded fast, like a bird's wings. The image was grainy, the shape small, but real. She laid it gently on her dresser. She still hadn't decided what to do. But she knew whatever choice she made, it had to come from her. Not from fear. Not from guilt. Not from pressure. Just truth. She was still scared. But she was no longer paralyzed. Spring arrived late in Ithaca that year. The snow lingered longer than usual, reluctant to give way to green. But by early April, the sidewalks were clear, and tiny buds appeared on the trees lining East State Street. Samantha stood outside the courthouse, the morning sun warming her shoulders through a soft beige coat. In her hands was a sealed manila folder. Inside, the official complaint she had signed 2 days ago. She took a breath, steadying herself. This wasn't revenge. This was survival. She had decided to move forward. Mark's license would be suspended pending investigation. That was all she knew. That, and the fact that she wouldn't have to see him again. The lawyer assured her that any contact on his part would be considered harassment. Samantha didn't want vengeance. She wanted distance. In late April, she saw her baby's face on the ultrasound screen for the first time. Nose. Fingers. A fluttering heart. The technician turned the screen toward her without saying anything. Samantha didn't cry, but something shifted in her chest, like air returning to a room that had long been closed. That night, she stood in the kitchen with Molly, watching a pot of pasta boil. The windows were open. The scent of fresh rain drifted in. "So, you're keeping the baby?" Molly asked gently without pressure. Samantha nodded. "I don't know if I'll be perfect, but I'm not scared of being alone anymore." Molly smiled. "You're not alone." They ate in silence, the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. In June, Samantha returned to work at Cornell. Colleagues welcomed her back quietly, politely. No one asked questions. No one needed to. She had requested a new department and was reassigned to a community engagement office downtown. It was a slower pace, but the work felt meaningful. She met with local families, helped build outreach programs, and slowly, she began to rebuild the part of herself that once felt lost. People still whispered sometimes. That was inevitable in a small town. But she stopped listening. She started walking to work again, started going to her favorite bookstore, even began attending a prenatal yoga class once a week. There, she met Claire, a single mother in her 40s with a sharp sense of humor and a warm laugh. They started getting coffee afterward, talking, laughing, healing. In August, Samantha gave birth to a baby girl. Her name was Ada. The labor was long but smooth. Molly held her hand through the worst of it, never leaving the room. When Ada was placed on Samantha's chest, the room fell into a kind of stillness she had never known before. Ada's eyes blinked open slowly. Her tiny fingers curled around Samantha's thumb. It wasn't the end of pain, of course. There would be more long nights, more questions, more grief. But in that moment, Samantha understood what it meant to choose hope, even when broken. To create something new, even from something wrong. On the first crisp day of fall, Samantha walked through the Ithaca Commons with Ada wrapped in a soft gray sling against her chest. People smiled as they passed. A man tipped his hat. A young woman paused to say how beautiful the baby was. Samantha thanked her. Then she kept walking. She didn't need anyone's permission to live in the open anymore. She had stopped asking for it. And now, with each step, she was learning how to be whole again. Thank you for listening to this story. If it moved you, feel free to leave a comment, share your thoughts, and subscribe to Maudie's Shadow Stories for more true-to-life tales, told quietly but powerfully. Good night, and may your choices always lead you home. Ask ChatGPT.